this is Hiro from Hiro's Hotrods. This is a step-by-step installation video to show you how to install your 07 to 11 Hiro's Hotrods driver's side swivel seat. If you're looking for information on the 07 to 11 passenger swivel or the 03 to 06 driver or passenger swivels, those can be found in the other videos. Something to note with this installation is it is an irreversible process. So once you start cutting these brackets off of your seat, you're moving forward, it's swiveling. There's no going back. So please note that before purchasing. Now inside your kit, you're going to find 6 things. You're going to find a swivel unit, 2 lower brackets, 2 upper brackets, and a pack of hardware. Alright, now let's cover the tools that we're going to need to cover this task. We're going to need a 10mm socket or wrench, 13mm socket and wrench, 17mm socket and wrench, extension, and a ratchet. We'll need a 4mm and a 6mm Allen wrench, T30 Torx bit, 5/16 drill bit, and a drill, plus a couple zip ties. Next we'll need some tools to cut and grind on both the metal and the plastic. A cutoff wheel and a flap wheel, along with a utility knife, will get the job done, but please feel free to use whatever tools you've got in the shop. And last we'll need some paint, some safeties, and a jumper for the SRS reset process that'll be covered at the end of the video. Time to get hot rodding. We're going to start by removing the positive off the battery. Then we'll go to the center console, lift up from the front, pull up, and out. Then to the back, pull up on the back of these, there's 2 little clips that'll pop, wiggle, and pull on up and out. These 2 little front caps here, we're going to remove those, toss them in the trash. Grab your 17mm and zip off the 2 bolts in the front, the 2 bolts in the rear. Back up under the seat, we're going to disconnect all electrical connections and remove the wire harness from the seat. That'll allow us to tip it back and pull the seat up and out. Alright, now that we got the seat out, let's go over the brackets that we're going to be removing off the base of the seats. We'll be cutting off this guy, this post, the rear bracket here, same thing, post, front mount. We'll also need to remove this little guy here, and we'll be taking off this guy and the sensor and the little bracket behind it. Remove the T30 Torx and move the sensor out of the way so that we can cut this bracket off. Right up underneath the seat here, you'll see 2 little nubs that stick out. You may need to grind those flat so that the bracket sits flush on the rails. And here's a look at the rails after we're done cutting and grinding. We've removed all the factory brackets that were welded on, and we're now left with smooth sliders that are just about ready for paint. We'll need to remove the old rivets. I used a punch to knock them out. Now with the 5/16 drill bit and the drill, enlarge the top holes to accept the M8 bolts. Then we're going to paint up the rails. Make sure they're covered so that we can prevent any rust from happening later in the future. Don't forget these little guys. Time to attach the upper brackets to the slider rails. Start by pinning the bracket to the top with the M8x125 low socket cap bolt and nylock nut. This will allow you to mark and drill the bottom hole out accurately. Drill these out with the 5/16 bit and attach the bracket. Repeat on the opposing side. Now we're going to dive into trimming up the plastic cover. This part is optional as the swivel will work perfectly fine with or without it. Here's how I chose to cut this one up. I later trimmed off the red tabs there and eventually the yellow on my own personal rig. Here's an example of where the red was cut. This will work perfectly fine. And now for the center console. We'll need to cut an 8" by 1 3/4 inch hole to allow for the seat to pass by while swiveling. Time to put the swivel unit and the lower brackets together. This is going to require the 4 spacers, the 8 M8x125 30mm bolts, the 8 washers, and the 8 serrated flange nuts. Start by inserting the spacer between the swivel and the lower brackets. Grab a bolt and washer, slide it down through the hole, and secure it with the serrated flange nut. Leave it a little bit loose because this will help with the later installation into the chassis. Slap in the little rear garnish piece that we modded up, and follow that up by the swivel unit and the lower brackets. Make sure you pull the wire harness up through the middle and secure with the factory 17mm bolts that we removed earlier. When tightening it to the chassis, I like to lightly snug the fronts first, then fully tighten the rears and go back to the front and fully tighten those. Now with the lower brackets secured to the chassis, we can tighten the swivel to those. Slightly move the swivel unit over and begin to tighten up the 13mm bolts. Don't forget, there's 8 of them. Make your installation a little bit easier by pre-installing the M12 bolts, washers, and split washers into the front of the upper brackets. That little sensor that we removed earlier will need to be fixed to the bottom of the seat. This can be done with 2 zip ties and placed anywhere. Pull the plugs from the bottom of the seat and get ready for install. Lower the seat down onto the swivel bracket and begin to tighten up the M12 bolts to the swivel unit. Once we got the 2 front bolts in, we can work on the back. Slide the seat forward, gain some access. The rear bolts are M12 tapered bolts. I recommend tightening these first, then going back and tightening up the front M12 bolts. At this point, slide the chair forward, hit the lever, and turn slightly so we can work on the electrical. Alright, so after doing a few of these, the best way I've figured out how to do this is to unclip a couple of these 2 ones towards the right side, and you got one on the left end here, and just face them backwards and secure them up with a zip tie up underneath there. Hold them up out of the way of our lever, and that gives us room to also slide as well. You want to be able to maintain that sliding function. And that completes your swivel install. Now, it's a little bit of a dance to get this thing to swivel, and I'm going to show you how this works. Seat back forward, armrest down, seat comes forward, hit the lever on the bottom, and it'll start swiveling. Now you'll see it's pretty tight here. Steering wheel needs to be in the full upright position, and we'll also rub on the armrest a little bit if you have one, but it'll pass through no problem. Don't forget to reconnect your battery. Come down under the steering wheel and remove the fuse panel cover. We're after that little yellow 2-pin connector right there. This is where our metal jumper comes into play. This can be a piece of wire, a paper clip, or even a safety pin. This is my weapon of choice. Insert your jumper into each side of the connector and turn the ignition to the on position. Pay attention to the little red light in the bottom right corner. When that light turns off, pull your jumper. Now keep your eye on that bottom right corner and watch for the SRS light to illuminate. Once it does, install your jumper again. The light will switch off, pull your jumper one last time, and watch for the SRS light to blink twice and remain off. This is how you know you've completed the process. Right on, welcome to the end of the installation video. I hope this video helps shed some light on the installation process and will help it get you swiveling with some ease. If you've got any questions or are interested in ordering your own swivel unit, head on over to the website www.hiroshotrods.com. Happy hot rodding, people. Hot rod the world.